All we need is a little understanding. Walk a mile in their shoes. And if we keep our hearts open-minded, we'll enjoy this wild ride called life. And if we keep our hearts open-minded, we'll enjoy this wild ride called life.
Welcome, everybody, to another episode of the Truths We Hide podcast. Today's guest is Dorothy Ann O'Dell. And I just learned that she's an author, which is exciting to me considering I'm taking that journey right now. And it's a memoir, which is even better. I just love stories like that come straight from the heart, that are real and true from real people. But the other thing that I wanted to mention, because I love when the guests fill out these forms to be on the podcast, they mention their story and their why. But the thing that stood out to me the most, that I have been trying to portray in these messages on the podcast, is I learned to take my tests and make them into a testimony, and have overcome every challenge put before me with faith and courage. That is so strong and deep for me, and I love reading that. So I can sit here and talk forever, but I'm going to let her in now. But I just wanted to highlight those points. So Dorothy, it's been so fun just talking to you for the first, 10 minutes before this, but tell us your story and how you're still so amazing.
Well, thanks so much, Annette. I appreciate that introduction. And so I guess going back a little bit about my story, growing up, I was overweight and I was bullied all through school for that, which, when that happens, you tend to get low self-esteem. So my self-esteem was at an really low, and all through, being bullied and that through school, not making that many friends, of course, that led to being prey to relationships that were not healthy. And I came into a relationship, and he was my first serious boyfriend, I guess you could say. And, things were great at the beginning, and then it was not so great. Ended up moving in with him. It was very toxic. He was very mentally and verbally abusive. And I was in that relationship for 4 years, and I stayed in that relationship because I didn't think I could get better. And I never told my parents what was going on, because I just felt that, I didn't want to, number one, I was embarrassed. And number two, I didn't want them to have to worry about that. All growing up through my entire life, like, my parents have always been ill. So, my mom went undiagnosed with angina for 20 years and lupus as well. And then my dad had his first heart attack at 30. He kidney failure. It just goes on and on. And last year he was diagnosed with stage 4 lung cancer, beat that. And this year he is diagnosed with stage 4 liver cancer right at Christmas. So it's been a, like I said, test after test. But I truly believe that, and also 23 years ago, my dad's brother took his life Christmas Day. So it's been, like I said, one thing after another. And a friend of mine said, we're always coming in and out of chaos. So, which that spoke to me as well. And I thought, well, I could either live my life in this constant upheaval, or I could do something about it. And I decided that I was going to, get the help that I needed. And I was on a journey of healing and self-healing. And a friend of mine I had met in a financial services business introduced me to God and brought me to her church. And it was one of those things where I had been in that church before, because one of my mom's friends had took me to that church when I was a little girl. And I just thought, back then I was scared because it was like we grew up Anglican when we did go to church. This was a Pentecostal church, so the hands were waving and hallelujah, and it's just like, oh my gosh, right? Not used to that. So so it was kind of different, and I just sat there and I thought, okay. And I was still in this abusive relationship, and I come home. She had gifted me a Bible, and I come home one day, and we'll call him Blake because that's his name in the story. Blake says, "Oh my God, like what's wrong with you? Why are you reading the Bible?" And I'm like, well, because, life hasn't been so great up till now. So why not try something different? Right. And he got really upset, and I couldn't understand why he was so upset, considering his dad was an usher in the Catholic Church. And I thought, just because Blake didn't go to church, that didn't mean that, it wasn't a bad thing. So anyways, I could see now, why things happened the way they did. And I eventually got out of that relationship and decided to take a 6-year healing journey. And I did a lot of different therapies. They had a therapy in the church that I was going to called Theophostic Prayer Ministry, which really gets to the triggers of, what's the proper word? Sorry. It really helps you identify the triggers in life, number one, and the root cause of those triggers. So, I did a lot of healing with that. And also when my dad had cancer the first time, I'm always the type of person that I took care of everybody else. Everybody else was a priority. I was not. And, growing up where I had to help out with the household, cooking, cleaning, things like that, because my parents just were not well enough sometimes, or, they would work too. And, when they were able to work. So it, just to help out around the house. And so I decided that, sorry, my mind went blank for a minute. I just really, I forget what I was going to say, but anyways, I'm sorry. That's never happened before now. So, like I said, as I was going through this healing journey, that's right, I was taking care of other people. That's what it was. And when I talked to the social worker, she said, well, where's your self-care? I'm like, what are you talking about? I should mention, in the time between my dad was first diagnosed with lung cancer, I actually got engaged for the very first time. So I'm planning a wedding as my dad's going through cancer treatments. And then I have everybody telling me, well, maybe you should move up the date of the wedding, just for your dad. And I'm like, okay, I can't do that because everything's set, right? Everything's set in motion. And my dad didn't want me to do that anyways. He's just said, no, because the way it was, he would end treatments in the end of August. He'd have the month of September. We were getting married in October. So it's a month for him to just really relax, right? So we ended up taking, just having it the way it was. And I really, there was no time for self-care. When you're planning a wedding, you have like a husband and a stepson, your dad's going through treatments and working 40 hours a week on top of that, and driving 45 minutes to and from work. There really is no time for yourself. I guess the drive back to and from work is your time. And so I was really, when she asked that question, I was shocked. And I ended up losing that social worker because she ended up moving to a different department, but I still use those tools today, to help me. If I feel extremely overwhelmed and I feel the anxiety coming up, what are my self-care tools? And I've now really become an advocate for self-care as well, because as women, I know we take on a lot more responsibility than we should. And I know we use the excuse, well, no one else is not going to get done, because that's the excuse I use. And, if I would just ask my husband to do a little bit more, but my husband's also now working 7 days a week in this pandemic. So, I mean, it's crazy. We're all in a crazy time, and we just have to try and get through it. Right. So I just really, I share my testimony and my story because when I was going through all of that, I didn't think anybody else in the world was going through anything that I was going through. And there was times that I felt so alone. And going through that abusive relationship, like there were so many times that I just thought, my God, the only way I'm going to get out of this is to just end it. But I knew that I couldn't do that. Obviously, I knew what it was like when my uncle did that to our family. So I actually visualized, I took a picture of my nephews back when they were little. And I know now why I actually did that. Because as a reminder, when I felt that life was getting too overwhelmed and that I should just end it, I had that vision of that picture of the two of them in there. And I knew that I could never do to them what had happened to me. And it was a constant reminder. And I'm like, every day is a blessing. And every day I know there's people out there that have it worse than I do. So I just keep that into perspective. But I also share my story because, like I said, I don't want any woman to go out there feeling like they have to go through this alone. And that's why, I wrote the book, and that's why I am putting together a 6-week course called the Overcomer Academy, where in the 6 weeks, we're going to go over, how to identify triggers and definitely to be able to, find out self-care, what works for them. Because what works for me might not necessarily work for you. I love to read, other people hate to. So, and I find even taking a bath, like I'm not a bath person, or I was never a bath person. But once a week, just sitting in a nice, relaxing bath, locking the door so nobody could get in, and just really vegetating. Right. So yeah, that's my story.
So powerful, but you hit on so many important things. We do, as women, feel like if we don't do it, no one else is going to do it. And I think I actually said that the other day. I said something, and my husband was like, "What's wrong?" And I said, "Well, I guess I'll just do it because it's not going to get done."
Yeah.
And I feel that pressure, and I guess it was so hard for me to ask for help. Can you please just put the dishes in the dishwasher? Can you get my laundry from downstairs? It's so hard. So I walk around with this built up frustration, but I've even now I'm 45. So even now I'm still learning new things to do, because you know what? If we keep holding on to all that, it's not going to end up pretty. I'm going to lose my shit. So
well, what I found is I would suppress things. I would suppress it so deep. And then when somebody just said just the smartest little thing to me, it was like an atomic bomb would go off inside my head. Like I don't know if you've ever had this before, and I'm not advocating for this, but if you've ever had it where it's like you have an outer body of experience, you are just so angry that it's like you're yelling. You can see yourself outside of your body yelling at the person in front of you, and you have no idea how to shut that down. You just explode, and then after you're done, you're just shaking uncontrollably for like 5-10 minutes, and then you put yourself together, and then you apologize. But I realized that what that was for me is because, like I said, I have been almost my entire life a people pleaser. So I would just suppress it. Something happened, just suppress it. Suppress it, right? Well, you heard my story of what I went through. So all those years I was just suppressing it until finally the dam would break. And 9 times out of 10, when the dam broke, it was because it was something stupid that someone said. Absolutely. Or something so small that it didn't even really pertain to why the trigger was set. And, and I find that if you would have just had that conversation at the beginning, it would have been so much easier. I find that in marriage, because my husband says, well, why didn't you just tell me? I'm like, why didn't you just know that?
yes. So
communication is key.
You are so right. And I love that. I just love this whole thing, because so I did the same thing in the military. I was in the military for over 17 years, but because of the things that had happened when I was younger, and then, we didn't talk about it, I suppressed it. And then when I retired, I had the out of body experience. My daughter thought I was bipolar. I mean, I was probably Satan for a minute. It was bad. So I looked at my kids, just like you had your picture. I looked at my kids, and my friends had to keep reminding me, your kids need you. Yeah. And it was just so, I don't know, it was just so crazy. So thankfully I found God again. And I've been trying to embrace that and have patience and faith and learn. But it's hard. That's some hard shit when you go through decades of holding things in. Yeah. And just like you said with them, little things like a bath, depending on what people feel. Mine is music. I always have music on when I'm doing something or when I cook and I really don't feel like it. I'm like, you know what? Let me be in my space. Don't come in the kitchen. Just let me do what I got to do. I'm going to have my music on. I'll be much happier if you just leave mom alone. So yes. We all have our different things, and I think we need to find it.
Yes, exactly.
It's so hard to find it, right? So you need people like you to create this course to teach you, because sometimes you just need to be with other people in that space to learn from each other. Yes. And to know that we're not alone, because we do, right? We feel so alone. Like, you don't get it, you don't understand.
Yeah. well that's the thing. Like, okay, so I like I said, I've been newly married. We were October was our first year anniversary, and I removed myself from where I was living. I'm from Ontario, Canada. So I was living in a place called Chatham, and my husband that I met was in Windsor. So it's like 45 minutes to an hour, depending on what side of the city you live on. So I uprooted my entire life. I had two part-time jobs that I absolutely loved what I was doing. I was making a difference. I was working in a woman's shelter, and I was working in a daycare.
You're listening to the Truths We Hide podcast. And this week, I would love to invite you to listen to Freedom Sisters, hosted by Carrie Jeter, an Army veteran. It is a show that shares women veterans' soulful stories to help others overcome, heal, and thrive. So go ahead, listen to, and subscribe to Freedom Sisters podcast.
So I know. The kids, the two things I love the most: helping people and making a difference, and working with kids. And plus all my family was there. So since my husband has a son, it was only, I guess to me, the natural conclusion was that I would just move here, because, being an hour away from a son, wasn't the ideal situation. So I uprooted everything and I moved here, and he's a supervisor at a mold place. And so he could be gone for 12 hours a day. I never know what his schedule is, never know when he's going to come home, and he doesn't either. And to me, I am a planner. I like to plan everything. And for the last 4 years that we've been together, I have yet to be able to plan anything. My mom wants us to go there like before COVID, do like a Saturday or Sunday dinner. And I'm like, it depends on when Joe's done. I have no idea. I'll try and make it. Like, if I ask him, hey, can you please be home by noon? He will try his best, but it also depends on the job, and the job has to get out. So, so it's hard, because there have been times that I have felt so alone. And being in this city, I do have friends here, a couple friends, and I do have a couple family members here, but it's not the same, right? It's extended family, it's friends. And to uproot everything and be here for him, it is very lonely. And that's why I thought, okay, well, let's put a purpose to this time that is just me time. And when he's home, it's like, why are you home today? No, I'm kidding. I love my time with my husband, but it's like, what do you do? Because I'm so used to being alone, to transition into being with him. It's just like, so I feel like it's either all or nothing. So I'm either all in over here or I'm all in over here. So I don't know. But feeling alone has got to be one of the worst feelings in the world. And I think that's why, I want to help other people, so that they know that, hey, there's always somebody to reach out to. And like I
No.
said, yeah.
No, that's perfect. Yeah, we need that, because sometimes it's hard to find other people to share those things with. Like, so in your course, will you be teaching that, how to find that balance? Because let me think. I could go into a whole other story, but finding the balance, I think that's the biggest thing of learning. Okay, he's home now, but I was so used to not having him home, so now I'm going to get frustrated and get up because it's like, oh, I was just going to have my me time. So how do you go? Okay, he's home. Let me enjoy it. Yeah.
Yeah. Well, and that's I'm trying to do is I'm trying to, like, I have the basics of what I want, but I'm also going to try and tailor it to, the people that are coming into the course. Like, what is it that you people need? Because I find that if I just do it to what I think people want, that's really not what people want. So I'm very open to, making it, because it's going to be part of a group. So what the group needs is what we'll be focusing on. Like, I'll give different strategies and different things of the basics, because if you have some of the basics down, then basically everything else just falls into place around that. And I totally get what you're saying. Like, you have your schedule, and then I have to change my schedule because, someone's home. And I get that. I thought I was the only one with that, but apparently not. Because, now that it's COVID, I'm working from home. So, my schedule has changed at least 5 times in the last year due to COVID, due to him being home, due to this, doing my stepson being home and homeschooling. Oh my God, don't even get me started about homeschooling. That in itself, I swear parents are going to need therapy alone just for that, because I had my turn last week, and oh my gosh. And it truly isn't the child's fault, because, we've gone through this the whole year, and it's hard on them too.
Right.
But I was just like, wow. I'm sure liquor sales have gone up.
I'm sure. I think in the beginning, where I think there was some areas here that were sold out. So,
yeah.
No, such challenging times, that I think it's so important to have people like you to come on here and share that. I get it. I'm in Canada, and I totally get it. It's just, this is happening all over the place, and we're not alone. So we can reach out to you and learn some strategies from, your experience. So that's amazing. Oh gosh. Well, I'm really proud of you for being here, and for even sharing it, because it's so hard sometimes to share our story about, such intimate details of our life, and now, having it in a book. So, but it's going to help so many people. So that's awesome. I love it.
Thank you so much.
No.
I find that if we share our testimony, then, because there's always fear behind that, but then by bringing it out to the light, no one can hold it against you.
Yeah.
Because I've already shared it. Yeah. So if I've already said it, no one can hold my past against me, because the past, number one, is the past. And number two, I've shared it. So I always feel like, I don't know, because you all have all these fears going out first. Well, if I write the book, who's going to read it? Or who's going to, who's it going to help? Is it, and things like that. And we have to get past those fears, because I'm here to tell you, I'm sure I will grate on someone's nerves. And I probably already have a couple people already. So I noticed a couple less on my Facebook page, but that's okay, because I'm not everybody's cup of tea.
Right.
As you can see, I'm an open book, but I try and add humor to everything. Like, obviously what I've gone through is deep emotional stuff, but I always try to bring laughter to it, because seriously, if I didn't, I probably would have insane by now. But life is so, well, number one, life is what we make of it, and number two, I used to be so uptight, and every little thing just upset me, because it had to be perfect and it had to be this. But I'm finding that the older I get, the more fun I need. So instead of having fun when I was young and wild, now I'm having fun in my later years, which is kind of opposite to most people, but that's okay.
yeah, I don't think it's ever too late to start over, because I used to think that too. I'm like, oh my God, I'm like almost 50 and it's too late to do this. But this is like prime time where I started over. Like I found myself again after all those years of trying to be someone else. So I don't care. Like this is it. This is, and I get laughed at or made fun of, and I laugh with them, because I'm like, you know what? It's okay. We need to be ourselves now. We're too, I don't want to say we're too old, but we are too old for this shit. So, it's time to do what we want and not care what other people think anymore.
Well, and that's the one thing I really learned last year, was to be authentically me. Because for years, like if I was around my church friends, I would act all prim and proper. And if I was around my family, then I knew I could just do whatever. And if I was around this other group of friends, then I felt like I had to perform a different way. And I'm like, by the end of the day, I'm so damn exhausted because I don't know who I'm supposed to be, that it's just like, that's why I ended up hiding for a little bit, because it was just trying to keep up with who everybody wanted me to be and stuff like that. And then I finally said, you know what, screw this, because I am who I am. God made me this way. And if they didn't like it, well, then we're not supposed to be together. Yeah. We're not supposed to be friends. We're not supposed to, have that relationship type thing. And, not to say that I am not a little bit uptight once in a while, but after 44 years, you just don't let that go, right? It's a transition like everything else. So I find that I'm trying to just have more fun in life, just trying to let things go. Things that would have bothered me like 10 years ago, now I'm like, whatever.
And it's okay. It is totally okay. So your book, The Overcomer.
Yes.
Tell us a little bit about that and where people can find it.
I'm sorry?
Tell us a little bit about your book, The Overcomer, and where people can find it.
Okay. Yeah. The book, like I said, is right here. You can find it right now. I have a link that I sent you, Annette. Mm-hmm. It goes to like a page, but by the end of this month, it will be on Amazon. And across, I don't know, I think he said 55,000 different distributors. So yay. If you happen to be in Windsor, Ontario, that is at the Storytellers Bookstore, or what is that called? Elevate Health Boutique. Both have decided that they would put the book there for me. So that's pretty exciting. And you can also find me on Facebook at Dorothy Graham O'Dell. And Lincoln as well. And I gave that information to Annette too. I'm pretty sure she's going to put that on the bio. Okay. So it's just, it's exciting times. I've been saying in my gratitude and gratitude in the morning that I'm going to be a New York Times bestselling author. So I just am really excited for that to happen. You if you don't dream big, then there's no sense dreaming, right? I've always been a big dreamer. So it's pretty exciting stuff. And I'm in the works for book number 2. The first book is basically shares my life story, of the bullying, of the abuse, and the family tragedy and stuff like that. And it does give, it's a story of hope, because going through all of this, it gives people hope that at the end that, obviously my story is not done because I'm still here alive and kicking, but the book itself, it ends with hope, right? And family gratitude, because I firmly believe that gratitude is everything, being thankful for everything that we do have. So I have ended it with my life lessons and my family legacy. My grandfather, who passed away, it will be 19 years ago on the 18th of this month, actually, 19 years ago. And he is very pivotal in my life. He's an amazing man. He grew up, he was given away. His parents, when he was first born, were only 16 years old. And he was given away because they thought that they were too young to take care of him, even though they were married. And so he was given to his aunt and uncle to raise, and until he was age 13. And then when he was old enough to work in the family variety store, they brought him back into the family. And that's when he found out that he had several more sisters, but there was one that they had given birth to the year after they had given him up. And I think of his story and I'm thinking, oh my gosh, like what would that must have felt like to be given away only to come back when, you're good enough to come back to work for them. And that's my take on the story anyways. And so my grandfather was very strict, very, very strict with my dad. My dad was the oldest of 5. And there was times my dad will tell us stories where he was to be the example. Since my grandfather was working 3 jobs, my grandmother was at home most of the time. But she was like popping out kids all the time. She had 5 of them. So if something had happened, then my dad was the one that got in trouble for it because being oldest, he was the example. So he had told us of a time when he was like 17, 18 years old, something happened and my grandfather actually put him through the wooden door and he broke the door and my dad ended up having to pay for the door to replace it. And I was like, and growing up, my dad was always very strict, not that strict, but sure, we got the occasional smack, but it wasn't anything big. I mean, when we were out of line and deserved it, we did get it. But I mean, just to see how from generation to generation it changes, and we always want to do better, or I think most parents want to do better than their parents did. So I can definitely see that in my heritage anyways. But to me, my grandfather was like a gentleman, and I never saw that side of him because we were, he was just a loving guy. And I guess that's what grandkids are for, right? To spoil them. And so I said to my dad, this last July when the pandemic hit and I had to take care of Brady, that's my stepson, while his mom was at work. She's a PSW. So, at that time they were forced to work. And it was driving me insane. Well, number one, the kid's been locked up for months. So, I felt bad for him. And I was raised, kids are to be seen, not heard. And, just be very respectful of your parents. And this child was just all over the place and it was just driving me insane. So I said to my dad, how in the world did you do this? And he goes, well, you can't raise the kids today how I raised you guys, because it's just a different world. And that just totally blew me away, because I'm thinking, how do you do it? Because that's all I know, right? I know, always be on them, make sure they put their stuff away, things like that. And it's just like, wow, crazy. But I guess, and that's part of our heritage, right? Doing better, trying to do better. Even I used to be a big one of, if I saw somebody that was doing better than I was, I wouldn't get jealous, but I would be upset. But now that I know that I don't have to beat somebody else's record, I just have to beat myself from the day before, meaning be better than I was the day before. So I think there's a lesson just in that, really.
Absolutely. No, thank you for sharing that. I can't wait for your book to come out. And like you said, I will definitely be putting this stuff in the podcast guide for when it comes out, so you can find all her links, find out where to follow her, and if you're in Canada, where to go. So, gosh, thank you so much for being here and for reaching out, because your story is amazing. So I'm really happy for you. What do you foresee yourself doing in the next few years? What's next besides book number 2?
Well, book number 2 will be out. And I think number 2 is probably going to be more of how I overcome it, meaning some of the how-tos.
Yeah.
I think that's what God wants. And possibly, I want to branch out into public speaking. So, and definitely getting the coaching business more on a stable platform than what it is now. And just, I don't want to say being a household name, that people actually know who I am so that I can help more people. Because, if no one if no one knows who I am, then how can I help those people? I basically is what, is what I'm getting at. And definitely being, being a light in this dark time, right? Because shining the light on this now, a lot of people are, I think more people are dying of mental illness right now than COVID. Yeah. And at least in the area that I'm at, and it's actually scary. And the amount of people that, I just look at their posts and I'll send them a private message of hope, like, hey, I'm here for you. Yeah. And just being that type of person and just really, helping your fellow neighbor out, I guess is what it's all about. And that's what I can see.
I love that. Well, keep me updated with that. And once COVID is over, I've always wanted to go to Canada, so I'd love to go out there and meet you.
Come on down.
But thanks again. And yeah, I look forward to keeping up with you and all the things that you're going to be doing in the future. So thank you so much for being here.
Oh, thank you so much, Annette. Thanks for having me.
Thank you. Thank you for listening to the Truths We Hide podcast, created and founded by your host, Annette, the founder of A Wild Ride Call Life. Also, a big thank you to all of our sponsors for each and every episode that is aired. We have so much support from them and all of our listeners. You can find more information at www.awildridecalllife.com.